You warned me about Lightfall, and it's time for me to finally figure out why, as I make first contact in this campaign's introductory mission.
Guardian, help Osiris reach the Veil before Calus does. And please, stay close to him. He doesn't have any life to spare.
Ikora briefs us on our objective. Calus is closing in on something called the Veil. We cannot allow this to happen for one reason or another, thus Osiris is on his way to get to the Veil first. Fun fact, I originally played the first mission of the Lightfall campaign in my first ever Destiny 2 video because the quest started by itself as I logged in on day 3. In the iteration, we got additional context for the prior events that led up to Lightfall. For some reason, that extra cutscene did not play when I started up the mission this time around. My current theory on why this was the case is due to the fact that I purposely selected the starting mission of the campaign after already having been forced to play through it. There's probably a flag that has been checked that prevents this cutscene from playing again in order to not waste any extra time. While it does contain information we as a player should already know, it probably makes more sense for it to play anyways. The reason for this is because I went into Lightfall right after finishing the Witch Queen campaign. However, this is not the complete story. In between expansions, there are seasons which continue the story from where the DLC left off. So, while players who continue to play are more up to date on the goings-on of what led up to this particular event, I am not. I also did not remember this recap cutscene when playing the first time around, because when I went and first played the game, I had no idea what I was even doing. However, now that I do have more context of the story due to playing the last 3 campaigns, the events that led up to this DLC make a bit more sense this time around. In this cutscene, Zavala recaps some prior events. We know that the witness was out there and was closing in on the Traveler, but now the Black Fleet is at our doorsteps. Savathun tested our resolve, but in terms of the timeline, I just got done taking care of her. At some point, Cabal Emperor Calus was overthrown, and we ended up becoming allies with the new Empress. Our ghost mentioned Kydal in the first mission of the Witch Queen campaign, and at that time, I thought she was another adversary. However, from further context in the Communion mission, I later learned that we were not foes. At some point after that, presumably during a season, we became buddies with Kydal. We also became allies with Mithrax, the leader of the Elixni House of Light. This means at some point, some Elixni decided to get into the good graces of the Traveler once more. This is in contrast to Aramis, who led the House of Salvation, where they gained power from the Witness. Mithrax is not relevant to the following campaign, though. Even though Kydal usurped Calus, the previous Emperor survived and lied in wait. Due to his lack of control and power, he turned towards the Witness and became one of its disciples. With his newfound power, he reemerged and now leads the Black Fleet Pyramid against us. In order to confront the Witness, the Traveler finally left Earth in an unprecedented move. The Traveler fighting the Witness itself might come as a shock, but the Traveler leaving Earth really shouldn't. We know that the Traveler left the Elixni in the past, so it leaving us could have been a possibility. The Traveler Kamehameha'd the Witness's pyramid. While this resulted in the flourishing of some sort of plant matter, the Witness itself remained unaffected. Some ships try to contribute, but they only end up getting sliced into 3 by a simple finger wag from the Witness. We also get a glimpse of Amanda Holliday, the tower shipwright, after seeing the fall of a couple of dogfighters. She's currently engaged in combat with the Witness. I received a comment on the original video that alluded to the fact that she died. I barely knew Amanda, but as an established character, it's kind of weird that we don't actually see her die. I guess this is implied by the fact that we don't ever see her again, but that's pretty vague. The Witness reaches for the Traveler before contacting Calus. This sets into motion the events that we are currently participating in. The camera cuts to Osiris, who realizes that they have found the Veil. While he does not initially define who they are, we can use context clues to figure that out. Zavala wishes to aid Osiris, however the Vanguard is in no position to engage with the enemy. This fact does not dissuade Osiris from his goal though. We are out of time. Getting to the Veil before Calus is of the utmost importance. This is where the line Ikora says differs though. In this first version of the cutscene, Ikora simply says Osiris' name, which alludes to his current status of having lost his ghost. The second time around, Ikora is much more direct and references the fact that Osiris does not have any additional lives. In order to provide assistance, we find ourselves boarding some sort of ship in space. Climbing inside the ship is when the mission officially begins. This is where I learned that we are in the Vual Gaudium. That's Latin for Veiljoy. This Cabal carrier is stationed within Neptune's low orbit. We saw the Traveler leave the last city and the Witness attack it. Those events took place above the Earth. We never get a proper establishing shot of the planet, so us being near Neptune is spatially jarring. Or at least it is if you only examine this first cutscene. If we go back to the second cutscene that played when I chose the first contact mission, our actions become a little bit more clear. Our ship nears a Cabal carrier, and we drop onto it. It is at this point that the ship engages its warp drive. The ship begins to travel at hyperspeed away from the Earth. This sudden action forces us to cling onto the ship for our dear life as we climb into it. The additional context of this cutscene provides the reason for why we didn't get the establishing shot of Neptune. That's because we, as the character, had no idea where we even went. Once the ship slows down, our ghost triangulates our position. We are near Neptune. While we caught a ride over to this unknown location, Osiris seemed to have traveled in his own ship. It's important to note that the Cabal carrier only traveled to Neptune after the Witness tasked Calus. Osiris had the knowledge of the existence of something important being hidden on Neptune from the time he had access to Savathun's memories. The question we are now asking is, what is the Veil? It's clearly an important enough artifact that Osiris is willing to risk his life in order to prevent Calus from obtaining it. Once on the ship, Osiris contacts us. He did not expect anyone else to be with him, but appreciates that we are here to provide him with some assistance. He clears up that the Veil is some sort of artifact. Osiris has a plan to stop Calus, but that's still a work in progress. In the meantime, he tells us that we should find our way through the ship. The phrase, that ship, implies that he is on another one. Of course, Osiris being in his own ship makes the most sense, but Osiris then calling us a fellow stowaway forces me to consider that he is on a separate Cabal vessel. The fact that Osiris doesn't have his own ship is important because it means that we are unable to just fly away and escape from the situation we are in. While Osiris wouldn't try to do so in the first place, this restriction has more narrative implications. Not being able to fly away is different from not wanting to fly away. Since we dropped out of our personal vehicle onto this larger ship, I would also consider us not having access to our ship story-wise. We can't just jump off this carrier and return to Earth. Neptune's orbit has us trapped. I see some Cabal troops behind a window. A distinct guttural voice chants a mantra in an ancient language. The identity of this entity remains unknown, yet it draws the Cabal away. I reach a dead end, and for some reason, shoot the wall before breaking through the vent. This is where we have our first proper combat encounter. You probably recognize the Verglass curve as I've used the bow in the past. I have returned to the Stasis Shadebinder lifestyle, thanks to the Osmiancy gloves provided to me from the end of the Witch Queen campaign. These gloves buff and allow me to have an extra charge of a cool snap grenade. For my aspects, I'm using Bleak Watchers and Ice Flare bolts. There aren't too many options here anyway. For fragments, it gets a little bit more complicated. I took the time to read over all of them. Not only that, but I traveled all the way back to Elsie Ray in Europa to acquire the Whisper of Rending and Whisper of Durance. However, I then failed to equip these fragments for some unknown reason. Very cool. This means I ended up sticking with the Whisper of Torment, Whisper of Shards, Whisper of Bonds, and Whisper of Chains for my playthrough. Back in the encounter, while I missed my first arrow in an embarrassing manner, the rest of the Cabal go down without much effort on my end. There are some new developments though. Thanks to the influence of the Witness, they've equipped the Shadow Legion Cabal with some brand new tech packs. These packs contain Pyramidal Resonance. If left undestroyed, the resonance will provide shielding to any nearby operatives. The door we need to get through is locked. It requires a Chalice keycard. The mini-boss of this room is an esteemed Colossus. It's not really a difficult enemy by itself. At some point, I learned how to use a waveframe grenade launcher correctly.
My faithful shadow, this is your glorious Emperor speaking. Our alliance with the Witness bears such delectable fruits. Together, we will devour soul.
The door is still locked, and thus we destroy a vent to find our way around. As we do so, Calus motivates his Shadow Legion with a rousing speech. Osiris realizes the advantage held by Calus, and thus we decide to interfere with his march by destroying the carrier we are on. All the doors now require a Chalice keycard to get through, and thus, using the information provided to us by Osiris, we change our goal to obtain said item. The Shadow Legion actually ambushes us ahead, but it ends in failure. We crawl into a restricted zone and encounter a Warbeast Keymaster. An ice arrow freezes it, and a nade from my launcher kills it and the remaining enemies in the troop. We pick up the Warbeast keycard, but it is not the one we are looking for. However, it is still a keycard, and thus we can access additional rooms with it. The keycard mechanic is kind of useless, since the game forces us to work through the story in a linear fashion. I think this keycard mechanic would work better if this area was designed non-linearly. Our main goal is to get to the core of the ship. This final gate could act as the linear checkpoint. The entirety of the rest of the ship could then be locked off, with us being able to explore the ship and gather the keys in any order. This way, the vents introduced could also be of some use instead of just being, there. After mowing down most of the ship's crew, we find the first Warbeast locked gate. The words Osiris speaks to us seem fairly sound. If even the Traveler had to run away from the Witness, then we have no chance. This is the exact same observation I made when I played this mission for the first time around as well. One thing that I did notice though, was that our ghost suggested that we chose to leave Earth and the Traveler behind. This makes sense in the second version of the cutscene, as Ikora purposely tells us to take care of Osiris. The first time around, though, while we dropped onto the ship, it warping over to Neptune was not within our calculations. Also, Osiris further establishes on what the Veil is by mentioning how if the Witness is able to link up with it, the entire system will collapse. So, while we don't know exactly what the Veil is, we know its function and how the story operates. While I appreciate Osiris telling us about the Veil, I think that its overall cosmic importance would be better established if we were shown the extent of its power. We crawl through the floorboards and ventilation systems. Kavos, Reverend of the Witness, jump-scared me when I first encountered it, but this time around, I managed to hold it off. Osiris mentions how this was a creation through the unholy alliance between the Witness and the Cabal, but I have no idea where the influence of the Cabal creeps in. This is also the location of this mission's first campaign banner. There's not that many ads, so I'm able to snipe the Keymaster with my grenade launcher. I don't find the Chalice keycard, and instead pick up the Conquest key. This does allow me to access the ship's control room. There are not enough enemies to slow me down. With just 4 arrows, I destroy the ship's core. Since the ship we are on is on a downward spiral, we need to escape. Meeting Osiris not only groups us up, but also allows us to enact his plan on how we're getting onto the surface of Neptune. We exit the ship and traverse to the adjacent one thanks to some floating meteoroids. The spectacle of the set piece is still astounding. I didn't stop at all once I made my way outside, this time around. This allows me to witness the Shadow Legion flagship as it flies directly below us. Calus taunts us, but he doesn't want us dead. Instead, he wishes to face off against us directly in the arena. The muffling of the audio while we're in space is a nice touch. Some trash cabal attack me, but they just waste my time. I jump onto the next ship Astaroth Rex II. Astaroth actually is the name of a great duke of hell and part of the evil trinity with Beelzebub and Lucifer. Those two names I've heard a lot more than Astaroth, to be honest. And Rex is obviously king in Latin. Osiris fills us in on his plan, and it's pretty straightforward. We need to destroy the engine of the ship as it will harm Calus and slow down his search and assault. This ship is rather large and requires me to massacre an entire battalion of the Shadow Legion before finding the Chalice keycard. I placed down the second campaign banner and used the Chalice keycard to enter the engine room. Before I walked in, I made sure to blow up the yellow barrels closest to the entrance because I foresaw a future me killing myself with those explosives. The rest of the fight had no particular standout moments. It was a relatively stress-free experience. With the reactors destroyed, the ship is also going down. Osiris informs us to head towards the escape pods. For some reason, our ghost is not a big fan of Osiris' escape pod plan. I'm not sure why, because escape pods were created for situations exactly like this one. What is our ghost not exactly a fan of? If we stay on the ship, we're probably gonna die. Maybe our ghost could resurrect us, but that sounds like an even worse idea to test. Osiris is almost at the escape pods, but the Shadow Legion leaders have caught onto our plan, especially since we destroyed the engine. Since we're being sealed off, we need to find an alternative route. I find the third campaign banner, but as I try to rally to the flag, I walk past the checkpoint and start the encounter. Whoops. Luckily, I'm able to clear out the hangar without any ammo or cooldown issues. I kill a keeper and use the War Beast keycard to access the locked room. It's here I encounter Kavast once more. While this is legendary difficulty, my acquired game knowledge along with the freezing effect from the turrets made this fight not particularly difficult. Although part of that is thanks to the arena allowing me to hide from the Tormentor effectively. Tormentors, overall though, are fairly well designed enemies. They are aggressive in their nature as they chase you down. They also have a rather large health pool and super armor against explosive damage. I sure do wonder if there's a mechanic that would allow you to negate this passive ability. Using the Conquest keycard, we enter the emergency exit room. Ghost wonders if the escape pods are safe, and I think at this point I'm just now realizing that Ghost does not understand what an escape pod even is for. Osiris steps and lets out a scream as the systems eject the escape pod. Our own pod crash lands on Neptune. We escape the destroyed container and observe the environment around us. Unknown to us, Neptune birthed a civilization and then constructed this advanced city on what we thought was an abandoned planet. Our ghost pings Osiris. However, some unknown voices intercept our comms. We confirm that we are not affiliated with the Cabal invaders and instead are guardians from the lost city. Neither of the voices formally introduces themselves at this point, but I can learn their names from the comm section in the upper right-hand corner. Neomuna's landing site is visually quite distinct from the rest of Destiny's locations. This obviously has to do with Neomuna's futuristic style, and also with Calus's flagship looming in the background. While some of the buildings are quite distinct, this design principle doesn't apply to every aspect of Neomuna. The terrain we cover itself is quite bland and uninteresting. It's just some rocks. The building's low density and lack of height, alongside Destiny's typical open arenas, do not help in making the location feel any more distinct from others though. Osiris contacts us. He is stuck in his escape pod, although we are fast approaching his location. After taking care of the nearby Cabal, we take notice of an anomaly. We witness swatches of green lines expanding into infinity while traversing throughout Neomuna, and now they have concentrated into something more tangible within our minds. We look within and become Strand empowered. This is the second Darkness subclass after Stasis, and one that does not seem to be tied with the Witness. The best parts of the Darkness subclasses are their physics and interaction with the game world. Stasis created physical pillars of low energy, while Strand allows us to grapple all over the place. Our newfound power is fun, but we unfortunately abuse it and collapse onto the ground, barely holding onto consciousness. We saw the two voices from earlier fly by us. this is where they officially make their introduction. This cutscene doesn't have too much for me to say. However, now that I do know that Osiris lost his ghost, this accidental appeal to emotion from Rohan is more effective on Osiris than what I first realized. Getting to the Veil is of the utmost importance, but of course, if you're dead, it doesn't matter. While this works on Osiris now, I still have a ghost. However, I've just collapsed from oozing a newfound power, and thus resting at the Watchtower before focusing on the Veil is probably not a terrible idea. The cutscene between Calus and the Witness is still completely useless though. I guess it establishes the Witness's presence in the story some more, as we, the player, see him interact with the big bad guy of this campaign. Since our character has a more established relationship with Calus, players who actually know Calus and experience parts of his story probably fear the Witness more than those who don't based on these interactions. The fact that Kaido defeated Calus and sent him packing, though, only diminishes his threat level some more to me. This is my analysis on the first mission of the Lightfall campaign. Thanks for watching and liking the video. I also have an almost 4-hour video on the Witch Queen expansion on my channel if you're interested. Cheers.